I invite, without wasting much time, because we are running behind time and we would like to make up as much as possible. So I invite Professor Yegnanarayana. Professor Raj Reddy mentioned in the morning that for NLP, Professor Sangal is considered to be the pioneer or father of NLP in India, and Professor Yegnanarayana, the other stalwart for speech technology in India. So I invite Professor Yegnanarayana for his talk.
I would like to thank Deepthi for asking me to give this talk. 2 days back or 3 days back, when she sent a mail, she asked me to join the program. I said yes, but next day she said, "You are giving a talk." I mean, it didn't even appear like a request. So you you are invited to give a talk. Thank you for agreeing. I didn't even. So that is how it is. And it's nice of her to give this opportunity. And of course, I would love to come to this place. IIITH is actually my second home in Hyderabad. First home is where I live. And I love this place and also its ambience and also the faculty. And of course, I have been part of this for almost 10 years. Thanks to Rajiv. What I'm going to talk about is slightly or mostly different from what you heard in the morning or what we are going to hear in the next remaining part of these programs. But this is mostly dealing with what is called research and the perception of research from my point of view. Please note that I am not really talking about anybody's views, but my point of view, what is research and so on. And this perception of research, which I have evolved or developed over a period of time, and still continuing, the blame goes to Professor Rajiv Sangal. He is the one, along with Raj Reddy, invited me to join IIIT when I retired from IIT Madras in 2006. While by that time, I already settled or about to settle in Bangalore with my house there and the IISc providing me an office and so on. But then he announced in public so he's joining. I didn't even accept it. So that was the kind of interest he has shown. Not only that he has shown that interest. After joining here, not even once he asked me to do this, you see. And he gave me that freedom, and that's what enabled me to think differently from the rest of the people, you see. At least that's what my philosophy is from the beginning. Always think differently. What is there? What do you lose? After all, your salary definitely comes, and rest of it, I don't care. You see, that is my philosophy. And that gave me an opportunity to think about speech is my area of research very differently from even rest of the world. I will rightly give a few hints on that during my talk. This is not really a great technical talk as such, but there are some ideas related to technology and techniques and so on. You see, so and it was although I left formally IIIT, but I still continue and visit this place and continue the legacy of IIIT. I do my research work at home, same number of hours as I used to do here, and also I am enjoying. In fact, when she asked me to give a talk, I thought I would give a talk on what I have been doing in the last couple of years at home. But then I realized that most of you will go away. There are back doors also, you will walk away. So because the point here is it would be purely on signal and speech signals, so which I am sure nobody might like. But what I must admit is I'm enjoying, and there are so many new different ideas. In fact, I still feel that I can engage easily about a few dozen researchers. And there are simply so many issues. Not that they all can get degrees or papers, but I can engage them in that. That is the kind of a field the speech is. And so what I am going to talk about, in fact, I should not have come in the morning. The reason is that I had changed my view on a few things which I wanted to test today. And in fact, I would have planned a talk if I had another 3-4 hours very differently from what I have prepared. But having said that, still I don't have enough time to change my plan. except to say that all the talks in the morning were on data science and whatever it is. You see, some of the statements I take it lightly, don't take them seriously in terms of, you can apply your own. That is my view, that's all. You see, it's about the data science. About 10 years or 8 years ago, to IIIT, I wrote a stinking letter on that, you see, because they wanted to change the society, signal processing society, which I belong to data science. No. I said, that is where I got angry with them. But nobody replied anyway. That doesn't matter, you see. But what I am going to, you heard, now I don't have to tell any, all of you are data scientists except me. I am going to talk about science of data. Not data science, but science of data. See, you will see what I mean by that as we go along. And also, I will elaborate a few illustrations. And so the focus also is what is called the naturalness, the natural language processing. So we hardly emphasize the naturalness of that, you see. So that is why I want to, barring a few systems, please note that most of the system that I see, although I don't do any of this system building, but I do keep track of what is going on because I have to give talks like this. So I read, and most of the systems involving natural things like speech or whatever it is, what we do is we slowly destroy the naturalness and bring it to a situation on which, let us say, from an extempore speech to a text, and then build a translation or whatever it is, and then try to insert naturalness on that. See the point I am saying. So we are destroying the naturalness. I will elaborate on this with a few illustrations that I cooked up, you see. And so we destroy the naturalness, let us say, extempore speech, bring it all the way to written form, and then edit the text form. Text also edit by Microsoft text editing, and remove all the mistakes, spelling mistakes, everything, and so on. Every naturalness that is there is destroyed. And now we have text. Now we have text-to-text translation. And now we want to produce speech in translation. So start inserting the narrative. So you can see, if you understand or if you pay attention to what is naturalness, you can see how difficult it is to model the naturalness, to insert it. We don't even understand what is naturalness. You're all listening to me, but you may say it is natural speech, but you can't describe what is that naturalness that you are listening. You see? And how do you insert it on a synthetic one, this naturalness? It's a fantastic, it's very difficult to understand. So let me start with my talk. I already went 10 minutes, but it's okay. So we have been talking about languages. Again, as I told you, my perception of many things are different. It has to be different, because otherwise, why would you listen to me? So languages, there's nothing like a language. Language is meant to communicate among people, and you start speaking for communication right from your childhood. Maybe after 9 months, baby, or 6 months, baby, onward, from 1 year onwards, you start speaking. Don't talk about language then. There's no language at all. And so then what happens is, the language is a medium of communication in a natural form, that is spoken form. There's nothing like a text form of language. I can write Telugu in Devanagari, or I can write Devanagari in Roman. So there's no link between this and this. And notice, just from the morning talks I heard, what I suddenly realized is, take the whole, we are all talking about India, Indian languages and so on. Take the population of India. My numbers may be wrong because I never compared, but more than 50% of the population, because they all live in villages and so on, they don't know what language they are talking. They just use some major sounds to communicate, and it happens to be a language, that's all. You can't classify, this is Telugu, this is English, this is this one, and so on and so forth. There's nothing like a context switching and so on. And the language, such a language, it changes from region to region. When I am a Telugu speaking person, I was born in Andhra Pradesh and brought up and so on. But when I came to Telangana after living away from in Chennai and Bangalore, frankly speaking, I couldn't understand even 20% of the Telugu that is spoken in Telangana in the first few years. And they say dialect. No, it's not dialect. The point here is, this language is a continuum. There's nothing like it. If you talk only language in the form of spoken form, in fact, language exists only in spoken form. Written form is your invention, that's all. You see, because language is meant for communication among people. So if you talk in terms of language in spoken form, across the country, it is a continuum. That's why I don't like the word language identification and so on. There's nothing like a language identification here. You see, it is a continuum. And we have to learn to deal with that. If you want to build a system, if you want to build a translation system and so on, you can't ask them to speak grammatically something and so on. Go to the village. In fact, I was traveling along Assam and so on. Unbelievable. I don't know how they are communicating, although I don't know Assamese, but I don't think they are even speaking Assamese. Something else was happening. You see? So the communication ability, that is language. That is language. And that is the natural language. So the spoken form is the most natural language. See? And so technology, I agree, by simply diluting or making it more formal, you are destroying the naturalness first. Please note that. And the motivation for this talk came from the following. You see, people still don't leave me. They ask me to review some papers and so on. Every year I end up reviewing about a dozen papers or so. And as you understand what those papers are, and also I'm editor for an American journal. So I get about a dozen papers per year to manage the editing and so on. 90, almost probably only 1 out of 20 papers. Other than that, all of them have to deal with, they have title, in the title speech, but rest of the paper is about the last panel discussion that we had, deep learning. And it's amazing that I although somebody is reviewing, or when I review, of course, I ask the authors, your title speech, where is speech in this whole article? There was no speech in the whole article, not one. Almost 80 to 90% of the paper that I reviewed, that is the motivation for this talk. You see? And not say again, same 90% of the papers I am supposed to handle as an editor. And I am basically a speech person. I don't, although I know neural network, deep learning to quite a bit, although I didn't do much on deep learning, but I teach that course. So the point here is, there is nothing like on speech, but they still talk about paper in speech. It was put in the category of speech and so on, you see. And that is one part of it. The other part that we have been discussing all along is the data. Data. Without data, you can't collect data. You see? And data, they say these days, oil. Data is oil. I agree, data is oil, but it is crude oil. You can't put it in the machine. You see? You have to process it. So you need, if not signal processing people, petroleum processing people you need. I see. That is data. Please note that. You see, it's the, and so the then we talk about, so the reason I have chosen this topic is to be, first thing I thought I will talk about speech, as I told you. And then I know nobody will come. And also, you have to put some AL, ML, DL somewhere in the title. So that is how this title has come. Otherwise, this title would have been different, you see. And then what I have noticed is that I have been reading a lot. Raju asked me at the lunch time or before tea time, he asked me to write a few of these ideas and so on. It is true, but who will read anyway? So even if I write, so I am talking about the science. What is science? And what is AI and what is science from my perception? Without going too much into this, science means understanding. All of you may know how AI started in 1955, 57, Dartmouth Conference. And that intelligence they talked about, or AI in intelligence, had nothing to do with building AI systems. Please note that. It was simulating your understanding of intelligence of a human being. Only when you simulate, because they didn't have this much of computer, they never expected to build a system and so on. So it is the science of intelligence is what they were interested in AI. But what happened over a period of time? I will just take 2 minutes to explain the evolution of AI, how it happened. So from that, I will not go into all steps of this. So from that intelligence idea in 50s, you see, and then of course some steps in between, and then went to heuristic search. Heuristic search, they thought, okay, intelligence there and so on. Search background, heuristic. And then beautiful, please underline this. In fact, Raj Reddy is responsible for this to some extent. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Turing Award is based on this idea that you need some knowledge to be incorporated on your speech data to really build a system. That's how the knowledge-based systems have come. I'm not talking about rule-based systems. So, in fact, all his students' thesis in the 70s, I happened to be in CMU towards end of 70s for 2 years. So I used to meet all these people, and that most of in fact, there is a book on trends in speech recognition published by the editors were Rian Lee and Jane Shope. And I think Raj Reddy is responsible for getting that book out. And one should read that to see what they call it as a knowledge in relation to speech compared to knowledge that we are talking about. Very beautiful book. I don't know whether it is in print or not, but if somebody wants it, maybe they can borrow a copy the book and so on, just to see whatever it is. Wonderful. It's all, in fact, one of the articles, this is prosodically driven speech recognition system. What a beautiful article it is. See? And likewise, the syntax, semantics, all of them put on the speech too. Same thing happens when you are listening to, there is a clear distinction I tell my student between the word speech processing versus speech signal processing. When you are listening to me, you are doing speech processing. When I am putting a computer, you capture the signal and put it there, that will be speech signal processing. When you are doing speech processing, you are already using all that knowledge to interpret this. Whereas in speech signal processing, you have to understand what that knowledge is to a limited extent, you put it and then process it. There is a fundamental difference between this. And it was that I'm sure Professor Raj Reddy has read and tried to put them and build knowledge-based systems in 70 years, say, Harpy and so on. I was lucky to be in that group, although I didn't contribute anything in that development. But I'm aware of what was going on, kind of a thing. That was how so evolution from intelligence, science of understanding of intelligence, to heuristic search, to knowledge based, or the words, please pardon me a little bit, I'm not very precise, but some knowledge is required to understand the speech input and so on. And somewhere in between steps I skipped. Finally ended up in end-to-end, this one, that is deep learning and so on and so forth. This is how the evolution took place. That means now, earlier it was knowledge driven. Now it is data driven. That is the change that you notice in the last 15, 30, 20 years and so on. And let us just take 1 or 2 examples in the context of speech. What is happening, let us say. In fact, how the developments took place and so on. Earlier, long back, when this technology was not there, there was a public address system and all. Somebody used to announce that. The announcer was there, they announce and so on. But sometimes they make a mistake, but it was nice to listen to them and so on. Later, they said, why that fellow wants to go for a tea or he gets bored and so on. They wanted to record that message and play. Maybe, of course, that is enough for that purpose. But you can see, same like a tape recorder, you say, you just listen to that and so on. Even that is okay. Then they started with what is called the concatenation of the messages. And you can see already in the concatenation, many stations you can see it was so horrible. Okay? And then they said, technologists like me and Hema and others said, no, this is not, we'll synthesize this speech. You only type and synthesize and so on. Then the synthesis started with what is called a concatenated speech and so on. And it is interesting that it was Professor Arvind Joshi who visited Pune in 1985, 88, 87, where myself, Hema, we all put up a small demo, a text-to-speech demo for Hindi. all that you have to do is you type the text in Hindi, and we had that Hindi keyboard also, and you can listen to. We didn't do anything great. You see, we only just concatenated the sounds and so on. See? But we left it in the exhibition room and let people play with it and so on. We are very happy to see that visitors' book that they have written. This is the first time we saw some AI system working and so on. What great AI it has, I don't know. But the fact, including Professor Arvind Joshi. That was the kind of, it is just thrilling to see something when you type, you listen. That's what. So that was concatenation. And then of course, Hema was in full, this one active in that area, what is called a festival. A festival software where you start building at that time we thought that is the end of it, that will solve all the problems. While busy with that, suddenly that is gone. Came HTS, hidden Markov model based in speech synthesis. And we thought, okay, that at least will last long. That is also gone before you learn and so on. And then what came? Now it's end-to-end. End-to-end synthesis. You see, in all of this, what is happening? You should carefully, the theme of my talk, we are destroying or losing the naturalness and trying to reincorporate the naturalness, which is almost impossible. That's what is happening. And so, then the title I put at Missing Science in AI. What is this? Missing Science in AI. So if AI, I don't have to tell because you're all experts and I am only a novice in that, but I'm referring to your AI only. See, your AI with all these terms, machine learning, deep learning, etc., all this, see, what is missing here? Apart from data-driven business and so on, what is missing there is the science part of it. The science part of the academy asked me, Indian Science Academy asked me a few months ago to give a talk, and I chose that talk as Missing Science in AI. And I have listed quite a few. One of them I will just give it an illustration. What is the science you are saying it is missing and so on? Just take one aspect of human part, which is actually science, is selective attention. Even that itself, I need a few hours to explain what is selective attention. But if you want to understand what I mean by selective attention, which is missing in current AI system, and it will never happen in any system that you build in future. What is the selective AI? If you forget about speed, if you have, I hope some of you still read newspapers, at least see newspapers, even if you don't read. I'm not talking about computers, this one, a newspaper, that big one. You see, how do you read? That full paper, some 2 feet to this one and this one. How do you read? You start reading from one word till end and so on, then till evening you are reading. And somebody will ask, what is the message? No, I don't know. But the whole newspaper you will finish in 10 minutes, get 90% of the message. That is called selective attention mechanism. The selective attention mechanism of the human being. And unfortunately, that means you start reading character by character or word by word, you will never get the message. So, and the selective mechanism is natural and it is individualistic. But you get the whole message. That is selective science part of it. We don't know how it is. In fact, Fukushima and others, and in Japan, 1970 onward, they started working on they identified the problem, they started working on that's why you might see the neural network models and neocognitron and things like this, you see. But they also stopped because it's not going to work. You see, we don't understand what is selective mechanism, but we do it all the time. And in fact, that is why if you collect all the text data, let us say, I should put the word speech, all the speech data and sample it and start using all of that, 10,000 samples per second and so on. You are lost already. You are lost already because when you are listening to me in the speech, you are only capturing less than 20% of the speech. Only thing is each person is capturing the part that is useful for him and make up the rest of the message here. That is selective attention. That's why you can see if you listen to a foreign speaker, let's say Japanese, Korean, somebody and so on, if he doesn't understand, then you focus so much of the syllable that he's uttering, you will forget what is the message he's conveying. You see, because you are not invoking the selective attention mechanism. You see, so that is one of the most natural phenomena which is missing in the current and can never be implemented in a AI system. And just, a slight another aspect, there are dozens of aspects like this. I picked one of the most important one. And another important thing what is happening in these AI systems is we try to find the pattern in the data. But what we are supposed to find is the process that generated the data, not the pattern in data. These are two complementary things. Don't get confused. It's not that one replaces the other. When you collect large amount of data, the pattern in the distribution of the data you are talking, and that's what you are capturing in all this. And when you are talking about understanding the process generating the data, you are trying to find out the generating mechanism. I can explain that better in the context of speech. When I am speaking, let us say, you are capturing the process, speech production process that is generating. You don't have to articulate that, but you are capturing that in processing that speech. That is not the data you are capturing, but you are capturing the process of generating mechanism that you are doing. That is what is supposed to be done, and no current or future algorithms will ever do that. And if you happen to do that ever, you don't need hours of data. You see, again, coming back to my self-example, I started speech research in about 55 years ago, maybe. So my first student did PhD in speech and wrote 20 papers. We had only less than 5 seconds of data. And that data was on printed cards, and brought from US and so on. And on that, we published 20 journal papers with quite a few in IIIE. And they are still referred today. Now we have 10,000 hours of data of speech. I can't even publish one journal paper out of it. That tragedy is it. That's because you are focusing on another aspect of it, not really understanding the speech. That is a fundamental difference. So now you can see what I mean. I can give several other examples, but I just highlighted only one example to see what is missing. This AI that we are developing is a complementary. Note that it is not replacing. It is complementary. It is necessary, but it cannot replace the science part of it. And you need, personally, if you ask me, in fact, my research also, although I don't publish much, but I still write a few papers. I do research on my own because I don't have students like you. And I had to learn Python. I don't write Python program, but anyway, I write some MATLAB program. But what I am working on is it really necessary? Can I solve most of the speech problem with less data? 1 second. No, even that is too much. For me, I think 50 to 100 milliseconds of speech is enough to solve half a dozen tasks. I'm not talking about language or message or something. You see? That is enough to solve, provided you pay attention to that. We still don't know how to process that. But when you listen, you are able to get it. In fact, one of the students in IIIT who, I take 2 more minutes, is that okay? Who joined for PhD here from Ethiopian student a few years ago, and he was speaking, I couldn't understand his English, you see. And then I saw we had to choose a research problem. Then I said, you are speaking, can you tell? Then I could see, I asked him to speak some Ethiopian language sounds and so on, because I couldn't find out what they. Then he spoke, say, a few words. They are different, but for me, they sound same. Then he said, there is a glottal stop here and a few other things and so on. Then I said, that is your PhD problem. And he wrote 2 journal papers and got his PhD. Very good. You see? So that is... and another science part of it, I'm going to give this talk maybe 2 weeks later at some IIT. It is learning. We think this machine learning is not learning. Human learning, I'm saying not learning is not human learning. That's what, please note that. You see, machine learning is different from human learning. Humans learn from the process. Machines learn from the product. They're complementary. Please don't think that you can make machine. Humans always learn from process. You will never learn from a product. You see? So, and so on. So these are the science aspects which you are not doing. And finally, I just mentioned, again, I should thank Raju for making this happen. And my 10 years of work in speech, unhindered, speech with lots of students and so on, we came up with some very nice signal processing algorithms. I wanted to talk about a few of them, but as I told you, most of you will get bored because they are very ridiculously simple ideas. But it has to go through 2-3 years of effort to come. And I will just mention those names, what is called the zero frequency filtering. People, in fact, even reviewers ask what is all this terminology and so on, but now it has become common. And there is also what is called the zero time liftering. I coined that word. Reviewers refuse to listen to that, but they published the paper, And now what is called the single frequency. Why I am saying this is, this has come from IIIT. And again, this is contribution of Rajiv, because he brought me here. You see? So that is you see, if you think, apply your mind, again, where that is useful, you can't immediately plug in and show some performance measure and so on and so forth. Please note that. That is the contribution of research in speech, and there are a lot more things like that in conclusion. You see? So I have not much to say except that incremental progress in performance is due to technology. Incremental progress in understanding is science. There's no conflict between these. Please note that. And I just want to see, since yesterday night only I started preparing, I wanted to search for a pen. On my desk, I have 3 or 4 desks. On every desk, I have 25-30 pens. You see, the problem is I have to search for a pen which writes. So then I thought we need an algorithm, machine learning algorithm to do this. Because not long ago, about 25-30 years ago, in fact, when I wrote my book, only book I wrote, neural network, I wrote by hand all that for 8-10 times before I started typing on the keyboard. You see, so but I had Parker pens, and in those days, also there is a problem because you have to search for the pen because you usually misplace it. Otherwise, I had only one pen. Now I have hundreds of pens. I have to search for a writing pen. This is exactly what is happening in all our activity, whether it is email, this one, you can quote any number of examples. So finally, this is an NLP question. Technology is great, but can you fill up the rest? So I think it is all of us. We have never learned from examples. We only learn from process. You see, we forgot how we learned, that's all. That's why the dangerous thing which I noticed, especially when I am interacting with my grandchildren, who are only now 6 and 8 and so on, last few years, I noticed that if by chance, if you allow them to skip that part of learning takes place only during that period. With your keyboard, with this one, they are anyway doing it without your knowledge. The point here is their learning ability is lost forever. Neurons get adjusted only during that period. And if you don't let them free this one, and ask them to do homework, ask them to do workout examples, ask them to do morning 4 a.m. to swimming pool and evening something and this coaching, that coaching and so on, you have destroyed their ability to learn forever. Please, I'm not exaggerating. It's both by experience and also both experience with children as well as experience in teaching. Thank you very much again.